So for a while now, there's something I've been kind of needing for some of the D&D games that I run, and that is a map of my area, the world I run for my players. It's something I've dabbled in a little bit, but I think today I'm going to go ahead and try to actually make a map, or at least a world map, and put some of my fictional cities on it, so I can start making something for my players to use. Now, a friend showed me a while back an interesting way to do it, I should say. Because I've looked online at some like random world generators and whatnot, and of the ones I've found and tested, I didn't really like how they looked overall. One I thought was okay enough to actually print out something for one of the games, but I'm looking to do something a little more different than what I've found. So I got on here the video that they showed me. Just post it here. And yeah, if I can track down the original poster of this, I will put that in the link, or at least the version that I was given. And yeah, essentially what you do is you roll dice and make your world based around that. So I went ahead and took a screenshot of the dice they used. I'm going to go ahead and take some notes here and just walk through my process. So as far as the system they used, one thing I noticed right off the bat is they use 6 different dice, which kind of makes sense, but there's actually a way to use 7 dice, which I'm going to try to use here. Now what I mean by that is you have your D20s, D12s, D10s, 8s, 6, and 4s, but you also have your percent dice, which is the same as the 10s, but instead of one number it has 2 on it. So I want to use these dice as separate indicators for my map. So let's just go ahead and put together something to emulate that. Looking from the top here, they have city, river, farm, forest, mountain, and lake. And like I said, I don't want a farm dice. I think that should be tied to cities, but using the D20 as city, I will go ahead and do that. I agree that that is a good one to have. Now on their list they have rivers and lakes as separate things. I might do that, but for now I'm just going to write down a category of water. And other options they listed on their list are forest and mountains. And I feel that mountains and hills are 2 types of terrains that can be lumped onto the same dice, possibly. So I do want to keep the forest and mountains separate dice. Yeah, because I feel with how this person used their dice, it kind of limits it to certain terrains, and I want to try and open it a bit more to the other terrains available. So I've got my Xanathar's Guide here, which has encounter lists for different types of terrain, so I'll just use that to quickly jot down the known terrains. So the first one is Arctic, which I feel that one's going to be like an interesting one. It should be related to mountains, the tips of some of them, but it should also be a region of the map, one of the poles, whether I designate my northern part as the Arctic or the southern part. I don't think I want an entire map to go from one pole to the other, maybe just part of a hemisphere, so maybe the top or bottom just being an Arctic region. I'll get a little more into what I mean like as part of the mountains, because I want each dice to not only like represent a certain terrain or area, I want the number to help determine a more specific attribute. So like with the D20s, I feel like if it rolls low on the number, that could be a hamlet, a small farming town or something. A high number could be a metropolis. So like in the instance where deciding an Arctic region, if I put that on the mountain dice, maybe rolling the highest number on that die is specifically the mountain is high enough to be frozen over, or something like that. And when I said earlier about lumping the mountain and the hill together, having a low number on the die, it's hills. The higher it is, the bigger the hills, which become mountains, and then high enough to be frozen over like Mount Everest or something like that. We also have coastal regions, which I feel should be tied to the water die. Whether or not I choose to have it be the water be 1 or 2 different dice, if it's 2 different dice, I'll probably keep like the rivers and the body of water separate. Let's say if the coastal was a low number on the body of water die, then maybe I just suddenly have this spring of ocean water in the middle of the map, and that could just divvy out into a river or something. I don't know, just brainstorming here. Next we have desert, which is the whole reason why I wanted to change from their list to my own list, because one of the campaigns I'm running is in a desert town, so I do kind of want the desert to be its own thing. Although I might call it like a wasteland die, to where it could roll onto sand, tundra, maybe swamp or something. I already got the forest written down, which another one of my towns is next to a forest. Then I have another town already planned out that is surrounded by a forest, so I definitely need 1 die to represent forest. Then we have the grasslands. My thought for grassland is, could also tie into both deserts, open field kind of area, so it could be, not sure. I think I want to keep grassland at the very least separate from forest. You got the hills, which I already know. I want that at least tied to mountains. Maybe I could also tie it to grassland as well. Now we have the Underdark, which is interesting because you wouldn't really have that displayed on the top of a map, but if I were to tie that to a die, I'd have it be the lowest number, and then if that showed up, there would be an entrance to the Underdark. And I would think that would best be in the mountain part, but I already have a lot going on with the mountain. I might have to make it part of a different die, but the idea is I don't want it to be a common thing, I just want it to be like the low percent of one of the dice. Then we have underwater, which obviously happens in the oceans and the rivers and whatnot, but much like the Underdark, I could make it a low percent where in the middle of the map you have an entrance to an underwater cave or something, perhaps. I guess cave would also be Underdark, but I don't know. I'll figure it out. Then we have urban, which are the cities, and that's the basic land types. I'll check aside to see if there's any others that maybe aren't in one of the books. Jungle. Did I miss jungle? There's not a jungle listed in Xanathar's, but that is an option. I could tie that to the forest die. I need to take a minute to think this through on how I want to do each die. One of the things to keep in mind is the amount of each die I might have. I think my most frequent die is going to end up being like the D6s. So whatever terrain I want there to be the most of should be tied to that die at the very least. Which I'm thinking it would make sense to have something like the grasslands be the most widely available type of land. Either that or forest. I feel like water should be pretty common. I was about to say I was going to split it up between the percent and the D10, but, well, no, that could work. I have 3 categories I want at least dice for. If I put water on 10 and percent, I could put forest on like 8 and mountains on 12s. I think I have less 12s than 8s. I feel like I would like more forest type, and at least putting the mountains on the 12, that gives me more opportunities for varieties in the mountains. Ark, what's wrong with your keyboard? It's missing some keys. Well, that's because I spilt a little milk on it and I haven't had a chance to clean it. Kind of wonder if do I even need an underwater option on some of these? Because the thing is, like, if a water die lands next to it, then that would be a source of water next to that area, going through that area, whatever. Do I necessarily want a number specifying underwater? Grassland's just kind of its own thing. I'm gonna look up some different types of terrains on like Google Maps or something. See if I can't spawn any other ideas I want to add to this before I just go with it. Here's one I almost forgot about. Volcanic. Definitely want that in the mountain area. I think towns should have the higher percent in this category. Kind of like the idea of Underdark being accessible on most dice. I took the underwater off of the rock dice because I think it should stick to that name, rock. And while yes, there are there's underwater in mountains and whatnot, I can just add that if I ever need to design that area. I'm just rambling. I just don't want to make the die too complex. And I can always change things however I want. I just need to get something. So I think that's good to go. So yeah, let's next part. Alright, so now I got dice written down on a piece of paper. I did make a change. I changed the D10 to the wasteland die and the D4 to the river. You probably can't see that, but now I need some dice. Okay, so I've got new dice from the Avernus set. Red dice, this whole thing of dice, a ton of D6s, which probably won't even use. Already got enough dice as it is. Got this set of metal dice that I bought. Got a whole bag somewhere. Ah, here it is. Right, I got this. Yeah, I've got plenty of dice. I don't think I'll be using all of them. Definitely not all these D6s. I don't think I need that much grassland. I think I'll just keep these in their box. Got plenty of dice. Now I just need to find some paper. Alright, here we go. One should be enough, right? Okay, I do have enough. Laid on 4 pieces. A little bit of tape to hold it together when I drop the dice on it, and I have a piece of board underneath so the dice should bounce instead of being on the carpet. Now I just need to find a way to shake it up and drop my dice. Bought this thing to help for cleaning up my room. It'll work perfectly for housing all these dice in for when I drop them. Now let's drop the dice. Alright, I am not getting in these camera shots very well, but here we go. Oh wait, probably don't need these. They're rock, paper, scissors dice. Okay, now comes the long process where I figure out how this is all going to work. I think the best way to start might be find the outline of the continent itself, then move to like mountain peaks, so that way I can determine water flow from the mountaintops to the continent edges. So yeah, this is going to take a minute. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this. I wrote down all the numbers of the dice on the paper, so I'm going to scan it in, get on the computer, and we'll end this video with me just making a rough sketch of the map overall, showing where the cities end up, some basic terrain, and perhaps anything unusual or interesting that shows up in that process. So, next part, to the computer. Okay, so as you can now see, I have digitally put in all the numbers of the dice and the number they rolled onto the map. Okay, so there we go. We now have a rough outline of both the edges of the continents and the rivers. So one thing I basically came up with while doing this is that the center of my continent, being here, is now a great swamp to which the water from the edges flowed to and from. So I think that's pretty neat and makes this a unique land point on the map. So I guess the next step I should do is go ahead and fill in all the white spaces with the color I feel at the time is most appropriate to this map. Again, I don't know if I've stated this, but this is going to be a map that evolves as I work on it more. Just because that's what it looks like now does not mean the terrain's going to stay the same necessarily. So yeah, let's go ahead and fill in all these white spots and just get a general idea of what it I think I keep saying this, just get a general idea of what it looks like overall as I get closer to making it look decent. Alright, it is time to show what the map looks like now, so without further ado, bam! It's kind of a mess still, but it's starting to come together. So yeah, as you can see in my current version, my central swamp got much bigger as there wasn't really any other dice of a notable land change next to it, as almost everything around it is water related, so I was able to just keep expanding the swamp. Most of my mountains are down in this corner, with a little up here and a little over in these areas. I'm fairly certain that's not how mountains naturally form, but whatever. I did end up expanding more desert than I thought I would. In fact, I have so much that this area right here I might later change to just be desert as well, which would mean that this entire section of the map would be all sand. And if I do go through that, I'll just like get rid of this up there. But it is interesting. I mean, there wasn't supposed to be as much sand down here, but I changed it because I was thinking of making this city Vezra, as I've already said in this video. And the most crucial thing for Vezra would be for it to be surrounded by sand and a river going through it while it's next to the ocean. And since this is one of the ones that actually landed on to be a city, that would be perfect. Where like, I guess this one could become Vezra if I just changed these forests into sand as well. So that's still a possibility if I decide to change that. It might even work better if I maybe just swap these two cities, put Vezra here, and have this be the village just next to the ocean. The reason I would say that would work better is because then the entire area around the city would be surrounded by sand. However I decided to do it, it doesn't entirely matter. I think right now the only die I got rid of is the one up here, because it was a river dye and that was already in the ocean. I just kind of scrapped that one. But yeah, this is going to be a living map. For now, this is where I'll be stopping with it. This is just kind of phase 1. This is my first draft of the map. As I spend more time just making it look better and actually putting more detail into it and not just base colors, I will figure out what everything actually is. Alright, so that is going to be the end of this video. I've made some decent progress on the map so far. It's far from finished, but for the first time in a while I've actually gotten something done. So I am actually happy about that. I would like to thank anyone who watched this video, especially since I haven't uploaded anything in a while. I am trying to get back into doing stuff more, but in the meantime, please let me know what you thought of this video, perhaps how I can improve the map in the future, because I would like to come back to it every now and then and just touch it up until I'm fully satisfied with the outcome. And also, I would be interested in knowing what kind of videos you would like to see from me in the future. And I'll try to get something done in a few weeks, hopefully. Whether that be continuing one of the book adventures, like 4 Against Darkness or the Fablelands, or an unboxing, which I know I haven't done the Avernum set, which came out recently. Or just anything you'd be interested in seeing again, or anything else you'd like to see me do. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.